Welcome to the Twinkle Talks EYFS podcast. Working in the early years is busy, funny, messy, and exhausting. Join me, Shána, and the rest of the Twinkle EYFS team as we talk honestly about our experiences as practitioners, teachers, and professional nappy changers. Whether you're listening to increase your CPD hours or catching up on our antics whilst driving home from work, Twinkle EYFS will share everything you need to know about all things early years. Hello, super listeners. It's so great to have you back for another episode of Twinkle Talks EYFS. And we have got a really lovely episode lined up for you today with the wonderful Marina Robb from the Outdoor Teacher UK. And she's a trained forest school teacher as well. So lots and lots of information to give you about nature-based learning. But before we get into that, here's our lovely segment of Praise a Practitioner to celebrate all the work you do. First off, we'd love to celebrate James Sarah because they feel like an intense language intervention is actually making a difference. Well done to all of your amazing hard work, and they do a special shout out to the Nelly crew. Well done everyone! We'd also like to celebrate Courtney Baxter, and they say it's actually been a really fab week for them. Their key child is making progress in their setting and making more attempts to communicate. They've also had lots of positive feedback from parents about the bond they've developed, and they got their best uni mark back to date. They also went to see their favourite musical today, which was Les Mis, and they won £25 on a scratch card tonight. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a fab week. Well done, Courtney Baxter. And finally, we'd love to celebrate Amy Louise because a parent of a child in their class told them how she wishes her child didn't have to leave because he's had a wonderful bond with them and she doesn't know how she'll hold it together on Leavers Day. Oh, that just shows what an amazing impact you've had. Well done, Amy. That's it for this week's Praise a Practitioner segment. If you'd like to celebrate someone, please let us know. Hi Marina, thank you so much for coming to join me today. I'm so excited for this episode. I've been waiting for this for such a long time and we've been following you for ages on the Outdoor Teacher and all the amazing forest school things you do. So we are absolutely honoured to have you come onto our podcast and talk about the importance and the fun side of outdoor learning, which is great. Before we start, would you mind introducing yourself? And for those of us who don't think it's going to be a lot of people, what do you do and how did you get involved in the work you do right now?
Gosh, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Well, how did I get involved in the work? I mean, from an educational point of view, I was a primary school teacher in my 20s, but before that I did a PGCE. I did environmental management in the late 80s. So I guess the truth is I've always been interested in things to do with the outdoors and the environment. Not I would say not growing up with that. I definitely didn't have parents that were into nature or taught me anything particularly about nature, but I did do environmental management, and it was a time when actually the world was beginning to think about it, believe it or not, with the first like Earth Summit and climate change. Then primary school, really enjoyed teaching and being with groups of children. But I guess there was always a part of me that wanted a little bit more freedom in what I was doing, but wanted to stay working with children. So from that age and that time onwards, I was fortunate enough to travel to Canada and learn to do more wilderness-based training and nature connection work, and basically brought that back to create Circle of Life Rediscovery as a community interest company, which offers lots of funded work, which we'll perhaps talk about, and also the Outdoor Teacher more recently offering more online online work, and trainings to get people outdoors, because that's actually what I think is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's starting to catch up, but
Mm,
I think, especially because of COVID, a lot of maybe settings and practitioners and even families are kind of not remembering, but, really understanding how important the outdoor space is, especially when you don't have it.
definitely.
Because, when it was in COVID, we were all locked away. We were allowed that one walk a day. And that was just like the pinnacle of the day, wasn't it, during the pandemic? And I think that's really kind of changed people's perspectives, which is wonderful, in a strange way.
And on the other side, like you just said, you've got situations where children are going home and not going out until Monday morning.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like the other end, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we know that as well. So we've got we've got people accessing it, going out, even that 1 hour that was so precious. And then on the other side, even outside of COVID, we've got a lot of young people not doing that, a lot of people not doing that. So yes,
It's very exciting.
yeah,
It's good. I like it.
yeah, me too.
But it's going in a good direction.
I do think that.
And that's why that's why I wanted you on, because I was like, the things you do are amazing. And the fact that in terms of your training and the things that you set up, I think it's really accessible for everybody. You don't need a lot of resources. You don't need a lot of money. You don't even need your own garden space. And that's obviously an issue for quite a lot of families, quite a lot of settings.
Yeah.
That you can still access outdoor learning, nature-based play, nature-based learning, and that's really important for children cognitively as well as, mental health wise. So I kind of wanted to start, for our listeners perhaps who don't know, what is forest school learning or nature-based or outdoor learning?
So, well, I think, outdoor learning is a broad term, isn't it? Learning outdoors. So, if we had that as like the umbrella, it could be any learning that we may say happens in an outdoor space. And that outdoor space, like you said, it could be a tiny weeny garden corner, or a little bit of a park, or a canal, or perhaps even the walk to school, to kind of a woodland. So outdoor learning is a big thing. Forest school as an approach is very much associated to regularly going outdoors, really understanding risky play, it being something that children can access on a regular basis. And it's also linked to usually forest school training that is, a qualification in following these principles. And we could look at that in more detail, but I recommend going to like the Forest School Association to look at that. And then nature-based learning for me is another one of those broad terms where we're going into nature, outside again. And I quite like that, because it reminds us that it's about this relationship with nature, and that nature could be a piece of grass. Again, it could be a wild thing, and actually that we're nature. And people say that a lot, you got to remember that we're nature, and it all sounds a bit abstract or a bit like, what do you mean? But I think that, when we actually touch ourselves, we remember we're this two-legged thing that walks around, that has a lot of the features of all these animals. And of course that's why it ends up being quite beneficial, because we're an animal.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of differences. And of course you've got forest kindergarten in there as well, and what that might be. And a lot of it is around how often people spend in nature, whether they're having a morning in nature every week or a whole day in nature. And then this play-based approach, whether it's choice-based, which a lot of the early years is actually, which is why it's so well suited to those early years.
Yeah, I did an episode a couple of episodes ago about, different types of approaches and child-led. It does really fit really well into that, doesn't it? Because it's not dictating to the children, you should do this outside. It's what can you do outside?
Yeah.
What can you do in nature? And then they also have that, it's not the word autonomy, is it? It's is it autonomy?
Well, it is actually. It's like they can choose what they're doing. They have that agency. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it is.
exactly.
And I guess that's the other key difference between what a lot of people associate with outdoor learning is that it's got an outcome. So it's kind of
Yes.
saying, okay, we want them to learn about maths or about understanding the world or about expressive arts or about all those curriculum links which we might talk about as well, but that's sort of like saying we want them to do something rather than just allowing the children to naturally explore and be curious, and then before you know it they're doing all those things anyway.
Right. I think the common misconception is, isn't it, that maybe nature-based play or forest school or things like that are separate to the curriculum. And you're like, well, it's not maths. It's going out and playing in leaves, and it's actually not quite. When you get into it, there's actually links to the curriculum. So that was going to be my next question. What links are there in terms of nature-based play and forest school to the early years curriculum, and why is that play-based, child-led nature learning so important for children to do that through the curriculum?
Well, I would actually say what isn't linked to the curriculum. I really would, and it would be a really interesting kind of challenge actually, like say what isn't linked, because every single experience and exploration in an outdoor setting can be what we would say backlinked to the curriculum. So the child is, as I said, involved in exploring the setting, and yes, of course, if the site has very little loose parts or loose natural parts, and there's going to be less to explore, so perhaps there's going to be less natural links to be made, but it's everywhere. So if we have a pile of sticks, I mean, the first thing it feels like is just starting with the body, at that age, remembering, God, we're talking about 2, 3, 4 year olds, 5 year olds, and some of them can speak and be quite verbal, but there's so much going on to understand the world, isn't there, through the senses, through the touching, the seeing what happens if all those things are kind of making these ideas of maths real, right? So what happens, like, can we pick up 3 sticks? It's rather than adding 3 things together that is abstract, it's like, well, let's take 3 sticks, let's give everybody 3 or 4 sticks, and well, let's see if we can make a space or a shape that we could all get into or something.
Yeah.
And then from there we've suddenly got a space or a circle or a triangle, and it's not like this is a maths lesson, but we've suddenly kind of bringing in these ideas that they can see and touch and smell, and I think that's really one of the core things of why this works so well, is that it's experience, it's
Right.
physically based, you're touching it, you're moving it, you're working with it, and then it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like maths, you've got this, the weight of something, like how much does that weigh? Well, carry it.
Yeah. Find out.
Find out, and then maybe we could put it into a weighing machine and go, okay, well, if I collected 3 stones, well, what do I need to balance that? And before you know it, you've got loads of mathematical ideas and concepts that wouldn't really be understood on a piece of paper
Right.
in the same way as touching it. I mean, there's just so many things, it's endless. You could do a picture of a snake or something, and then each child has to find 4 things for each section, and and then you've got numbers and larger than and smaller than and all these things. So that's just maths, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's just one of the 7 areas. Just one.
Just one of the 7 areas. And yeah, talking about how we feel about things, and that's another whole area, isn't it? And understanding the world is, well, you're in the world when you're outside, so
Yeah.
there's so much there as well. And of course literacy is a big one as well, that talking about stuff is hard if you haven't experienced it.
Yes, definitely.
So going on a little walk, suddenly you're picking up all these things and saying words that might describe what it smells like or feels like, or shapes, and then you've got all this language.
I know, it's amazing, and it's like storytelling as
Makes
well.
sense, right?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think another thing I've noticed is it also goes, I feel like sometimes maybe this is missed off, but the characteristics of effective learning,
Yeah.
outdoor learning and nature-based play really supports those characteristics about perseverance, about resilience, about problem solving, reasoning, trying again, teamwork, all of that. And I think sometimes, we can be so focused on the EYFS curriculum that actually, in terms of our characteristics, they often are kind of like an afterthought of, oh wait, yeah, what skills have they used to reach these objectives? Whereas in outdoor learning and nature play and forest school, they're so ingrained in terms of the activities anyway, that you can really see how they're developing those skills. Like if they're building a den, they're having to work with their groups to collectively come for an idea about what it looks like, or if there are sticks that just keep falling off and the wind blows it down, and all of this stuff that's so naturally ingrained in any way, that it also covers that entire curriculum in a way as well.
Yeah, and I think directly does, absolutely. I think well, that's one of my favorite activities. Just giving some rope and sometimes some paracord, just slightly thicker string, and off they go, and all that communication between children and collaboration, and like you say, problem solving, figuring it out, evaluating, estimating, all these words, again, quite mathematical language, but they are doing it. How much string do they need, to tie that piece of cloth or tarp to the tree? And what happens now? They've got to undo it all. It's going to take ages. So how are they going to undo? All these things that it really is there. It's there, and it's simple, as you said, and it's not expensive materials, because we're not talking about big equipment. We're talking about perhaps some magnifying glasses, a couple of cheap builders tarps, some rope, sticks, stones, leaves, all the colours, putting sets of leaves in a row from smaller to bigger.
That is honestly one of my favourite things. When you start in September, for term time schools, when they start in September,
it's autumn,
and you just look at the changing of the leaves, and you go out and you've got like a little nature list, and you collect all of the different kinds of leaves, and then the kids are like, it's a rainbow, and they make loads of pictures with all the fallen leaves and the different colours, and it's just divine.
Yes, exactly. And that exactly, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's not even starting to talk about the importance of the outdoors for regulation and mental health and well-being, and which is clearly a massive issue and topic for all of us, for our own well-being as staff as well as for children, and how moving and being in the body and is so necessary, actually, for attuning to ourselves, to fight, to figure out what we need so that we can feel better. And the science around play, the importance of digging and moving, and how that's another, it's so therapeutic. It's good for moving the energy, if you like, the nervous energy around the body. There's so many benefits, and really, as I said, it should be accessible for all children. Really important.
Yeah.
When I think of a child that's like going home, as I said, and not going out at all, they're missing out on a lot of these things.
Yeah. And I think also that's why it makes it so accessible, because we'll take maths as an example again, because maths has a wide range of different kinds of resources in school that we use to teach loads of different kind of methods, but parents and families and carers are not going to have that in homes. They're not going to be able to access the same resources, and so they might find it trickier. Parents might not have a lot of money, so they might not have the same amount of books at home to read with their child as others do, or as the school does. Technology, they might not have the technology to support their child, but everybody can access nature. And it doesn't mean that, you have to have a garden. A lot of us don't, but, that, like you say, walking to school, there'll be so many things that they can collect along the way, that they can observe along the way, that it's just accessible for everybody. And I think that's really important, especially nowadays with our cost of living crisis and all sorts of terrible things that are happening, like you say, that affect our mental health. A really great way and accessible way to look after ourselves. Luckily, I don't want to say luckily, but just amazingly all around us for free.
Yeah.
And I think as well, the bigger things you were talking about, because I was using things like torp and tires and big giant wooden all of that kind of stuff. A lot of it I found as well, you can actually go to building sites and just say, look, have you got any of this spare? Are you not using it anymore? Could we? And they're more than happy to help and be like, oh yeah, we don't need this, I don't know, wooden scaffolding anymore. You can take it. And, all of this stuff that you can actually work with others to get as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and like you say, with parent assemblies or a letter home, and could people bring in shells if they've got shells, or like you say, larger pieces of wood that they might be able to put on tires to make a kind of obstacle course, or and then you don't need that many skills to start lifting that little bit off the ground. Actually, a few good knots help you lift things a little bit off the ground, so it becomes a little bit more risky for the children that want that little more, little edge. So it doesn't need to be difficult, but like you said, you've got to figure out where is the park, where is the place nearby. And I think a lot of places in England there is, but it might feel like a bit of an effort to begin with. I mean, I was in a school last week and it was like, oh god, okay, we're going to go outside, and there's this kind of like, we get the comfort of being indoors and it's warm and that feeling, and yet we're quite stressed indoors,
Yeah, it's weird.
And then it was like, once I got everybody out, and I did say, after a couple of hours, I said, how do you feel? And they all felt just so much better. And it is that kind of thing. We all do it, don't we? We're kind of like, oh no. And then we go and do it and we feel a lot better. So I think we're not that different from the children.
No. It's like going to the gym, isn't it? It's like, when you get there, you're going to feel great after doing it, but it's just getting there, Marina. I just don't want to.
Just getting out the door. It's just getting out the door. And I think it's the same thing. And I think, so there is this kind of like, you need a bit of momentum, a little bit of effort in the beginning. It does take some effort, and you need, of course, we were saying about confidence, a little bit of confidence to see that you can keep the group safe outdoors. A lot of practitioners worry about that as well. And I think there's, really useful and valuable boundaries that you can set up really simply with children, either perhaps putting a little bit of ribbon, or we like to use bandanas because we use them a lot on sticks, and creating a space where the children know they have to stay within. And you need to think about that when you're outdoors, because it can feel like there are no walls.
Yeah.
But young children are really capable of learning those routines, of which there are many ways of doing it, little games. That gives you the confidence to go on a little walk, out, and have that as a kind of space to play and to learn,
Yeah. And it's funny because you're going back to the whole confidence thing again. Again, it links in with kind of your self-worth, your mental well-being and things like that. It always comes back to that. And I think personally from my experience, especially because of the pandemic, I've grown up on, council estates. I haven't really had much, space or gardens or thing like that. But I always loved going outside. I love being in nature and things like that. And then I moved recently after COVID, and I finally had a garden, and it's got a giant planting space. My dream, Marina, my dream is to be a farmer, live off the land, grow my own food, sew my own clothes, like all of that country girl stuff. And just the difference I've seen in my own mental health, like I've got this saying that I can't remember where I heard it from, but it's always stuck with me and I've used it ever since. But to plant a seed is to hope for the future.
I love that.
Isn't it gorgeous? I just think it really encompasses that feeling for us as well. It's, especially for the children, we can teach them how to, go looking for worms and looking after them and creating a wormery, or making a den for a hedgehog, or planting seeds and watching them grow and nourish them. And it just gives you that hope, doesn't it, for the next day. And it makes me want to get up in the morning. Marina, I can't tell you how excited I am to wake up in the morning and go and water my plants. It's ridiculous, but it is
Yeah.
the best thing. And like at the moment, I've got a big, like 9-foot blackberry bush, and it's in its second year, so it's just starting to fruit. And watching them change colour, I've never known happiness like it. And I know I sound really silly, but it's the joy of nature. It's the joy of, like you say, it's almost like, maybe that's where the word grounding came from. It's grounding yourself with everything around you, and helping you realise how you fit in that world. And I think for children, that's really important, because, you know, especially in terms of those theories of, you know, the egocentric child, etc., etc., they don't know where they fit in the world yet. Or perhaps maybe in their home circumstances, they don't have that awareness, or they don't have that opportunity to. But having that time outdoors and seeing the effect you have on the environment, and then the effect it has on you, I just think it's such a magical experience for anyone. And like you say, the staff absolutely benefit from it too.
I just think you've described it just really, like, truthfully, about simple satisfaction.
Yeah.
And simple things that actually give life its joy. There's little joys. And I think, we live in a world that is often saying, if you have this, if you succeed in this, and then that's what's going to make you happy. But at the same time, therefore, the opposite is true. If you don't have it and you don't succeed, meet these criteria, which those little people are going into a world that is quite like that, then you feel like you haven't succeeded. But what you've just said, and I agree with you, but having not been into nature very much when I was younger, that now, if I notice the simple things, if I can see that lovely orange flower or smell the rose or whatever, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And I think we underestimate, and I like what you said as well, it makes you feel good, but there's also something coming from the outside. It's not just inside, it's outside, inside. And that's what we end up realizing about everything about growing up, is that when you're little, you're looking, well, all the time we're looking outside for what we could call cues from adults or older people that we're okay. And it's the same, I think, nature in its biggest sense, like the trees and the plants, and it's also giving us some feedback.
Yeah.
And it is very powerful, but I think we've taken that relationship for granted in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I love what you said about hope as well, because you're right, in the seed is great hope. How is it possible that in the seed you get these crazy flowers or these crazy plants in this tiny seed? So that shows that potential is everywhere, doesn't it? And even though we're living in a time where, there's a lot of worries, people are worried about the future of lots of things, but of course we need hope, and of course we don't know the future. We may imagine sad and worrying things, but sitting right next door is a possibility. And I think knowing that, and having children see change by, like you say, pouring water. I mean, a lot of even older, I work across the ages, and some powerful life-changing moments for teenagers or younger adults who have been through a difficult time. Just being outdoors and seeing that it does change. Things change. They don't stay the same, and that you can participate in that change. You actually have agency, like you said. There is power, no matter what your background has been, how difficult it may have been. You do have some agency for the future, and that is really something to know about.
It is. You're so right. I just keep thinking as well, like these children that we're supporting, they are the future. They are, and it's so exciting. Like for me, I'm just like, think of the things that they can do, and I think nature-based learning and forest schools and all of that. We're in a climate crisis as well. I'm losing count of how many crises we're in, Marina, but like. The climate crisis, it can be changed through obviously doing things now. If we make these steps now, of course, but also if we have that from the beginning with our children in our schools, look, this is why it's so important to look after environment. This is how you look after it. This is how you can make positive change. And this is why, and they see firsthand that impact. They've cleaned up an old.
Yeah, they've participated.
Yeah. And then they think, hang on a minute. I can do something. We can do something. It's such a powerful image for them, isn't it? Because like you say, reading about it or hearing about it is very different, but actually participating and being part of that is so important. And I think it's kind of like the practical skills of what they learn, isn't it? It's kind of like, right, here are our curriculums, here are our subjects, right, forest school, nature-based learning, go and do it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, that's really important, not only for children's kind of learning, but just life. That's what happens.
Well, like you said, it being finally like finding out that it's not just your carers or your mum and dad that are part of something that is good for you. The world is also there. It's bigger than you, and that's, you can call it more academic words like your eco identity is grown, but really it's figuring out that you matter somewhere. You have a part to play, and that you matter. But it's interesting, like, we're here because of the plants that we eat,
right,
and the animals that we eat, and they're also here because we've, helped create spaces that they can live in. Do you know? So I think there's something that is very natural about that. And I think, to be honest, I think the early years, they get it.
Yeah.
You actually look at their stage of development there, they see everything as alive. And then we get older and we kind of forget that they're constantly in this world of imagination.
Yeah.
Right? That the stick, how many think the stick is the favorite toy, right? Still the favorite toy. So that stick is everything. It's the unicorn to the back structure, to the house, to the table, to, I don't know, the spoon, whatever it is. And that's the amazing thing about how we have these minds that can put anything onto the outside world. We can create those role plays, those ways, everything is so alive at that age. And we really want to encourage that, because that creativity, which is really just not being so habitual, isn't it? It's about thinking slightly out of the box, is what we need. We need that as adults. We need to see beyond what we think we are, or who we've been defined as.
Right.
You are this, you are that. It's like, hang on a second. Actually, I'm growing. I'm
evolving.
Yeah. I mean, it is a kind of evolving, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so creativity is really important. Then you get onto the more serious, like, work life. That's what they're saying. They want creative people. They want problem solvers. They want people who can be in teams, who can hang out, who can communicate. That's what we need. So it starts right back at the beginning about trusting those children to follow their bodies, to be curious, and have adults that go, oh, that's amazing, or feeling a raindrop, or splashing in the puddle, or I wonder why that puddle is like that. How come it's staying like that? And it goes on through life, wondering. I mean, I don't know. I know less as I get older. I'm sure about less.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You kind of start to think, oh, hang on, what if, or how?
Yeah.
And if we have that right at the beginning, like you say, children are really good at that, aren't they? They're amazing at asking questions, especially in early years.
Love it.
So that is just the prime time. And I think what you said about, how it reflects life and, work when they grow older is really important, because, I mean, we have the 4 seasons, right? So we're always going to have change. So that means we need to be adaptable, and being outdoors and having to manage that is also, of course, a really important mental health skill and life skill. But we're going to need it in work. Things need to change in certain areas, like with the climate change, etc. We're going to have to teach our young people how to adapt, how to look at things differently.
Absolutely.
How to experience things in different ways. And I think forest school is really a really good way of doing that, because one of the things I found is, I'll tell you the truth, I hate winter. I hate it. I hate being cold. Don't like it. It's horrendous. Once I get cold, that's it. I'm freezing. It takes me hours to warm up again, and I just can't. I'd much rather be 30 degrees every single day. The heat, I can do it. I feel like I'm one of those Mediterranean lavenders. Like, I'm ready. Like, it's fine. But the winter is really challenging. And I know when I had an outdoor area, that was really challenging. And I always used to feel so defeated, like, oh, I'm not skilled enough for this. I don't really know how to do it. But then I got my planters in the garden, and actually, not that I really enjoy it, but I value it now, because that's when all the work goes in. So that's when I, say if I am doing like planting and growing, it's when I clean up the planters, it's when I treat the soil and uproot it and make sure that, it's ready. Or with my strawberry plants, I put little fleeces over them so they're all nice and cozy, so they, survive, and things like that. And you get to kind of understand, don't you, that every stage is important. It's kind of philosophical, like you're going to have ups and downs in life, things are going to change, but you can see the value in them. Just like how I'm not the biggest fan of winter, but I understand how important it is, and that if I get the work done then my summer, the harvest, is going to be so worth it. And I'll tell you right now, Marina, it is. The amount of fruit and veg I've got is ridiculous. I could open up my own farm shop. But, in terms of like philosophy, it also kind of teaches them that in terms of emotional resilience.
Definitely. And the winter, is also about rest. And so it is about work in the right kind of work, the work that decomposes, that needs to prepare the soil, and then we can look at that in our lives. And again, we are being a bit philosophical, but you don't start like that. You start by just enjoying and putting your hands in the mud and, like you say, doing what you're doing. But somewhere along the line, you make that connection, which is what you're doing, saying, actually, wow, by doing that, then that can happen later. Or, as I said, rest. We need to all look and figure out the moments we need to rest.
Yeah.
And, in a very, very fast moving life, we need to rest. It's like there's something wrong with resting. It's like there's nothing wrong with resting. Every night we need a night time. We need a winter time. We need times where we need to rest. And when we rest, we wake up like a little spring chicken and off we go again. Do you know what I'm saying? But we can't buzz up and go and do that if we haven't rested. What do they say about everything? Is like, you got to try and get a good night's sleep. It's kind of not rocket science, but when we're thinking about well-being and educating children, we need to consider the movement, absolutely active, being in the body, all that muscle development, the motor skills, everything, the core strength that helps us sit up, helps us to hold a pen, helps us to, do everything, and in the future, not have diabetes, have healthy hearts, be well, so we need to think about that. But we also need the times of wandering aimlessly, and just being and hanging out, and that's what this is about, really. And then that's, I suppose, the nature-based programs ideally reflect that. So really lots of action, vitality, perhaps in the springiness of the day, and then allowing for that wandering and, exploration. But I do want to return back to, I love that word participation. It's kind of my word of the month, because there's something around, we need a system, an education system where we can really feel we're participating in, and that we're not, I guess, worried about having to always have the answers and be in control, and listening to children, what they enjoy, and kind of a bit more alongside, as we talk about, like working, playing alongside, letting them teach us how to play.
Right.
And then some children won't know how to play, because they haven't, right? Or they're challenging home lives for one reason or another, and they need us to help them do that. So, but this participation, I think, is really important across early years, but, into adulthood.
I could just talk about this for hours, Marina. I love it.
I hope the background of all the building work is not getting in the way, but hopefully it's fine.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine. So we've talked so much about, kind of the bigger picture of why it's necessary and exciting and important work. But what kind of, I know this is probably really hard to pick, but what kind of activities have always really stuck out for you, or favorites that, always go down really well? Or is there a specific activity that you've always remembered for a specific reason?
I mean, you said right at the beginning about, building homes and shelters and, little shelters for whatever little beings might live there. I think making homes is like one of those very significant play themes that come up everywhere, and I love that. So if that was going to be my top thing, I would go like, yes, let's come and hang out and make homes together and do that. But then when you said it just then, what came to me is that kind of cooking, like,
Oh,
well, yeah, because I like eating, and when you get outside, you get very hungry,
yep.
and that idea of mixing things together, and perhaps, yeah, if you get a chance to have a fire or a little gas cooker thing that you can take outside if you can't do fires, that idea of mixing and eating and hanging out together, and
Yeah.
I just think that is so lovely, and it's that community feeling that
Mm.
we can struggle to have. So I think, yeah, I think I would go for that. I'd say like we were making flapjacks last week, and we just mixed all up the oats and the sugar and the nuts and whatever we did, and then we put them into leaves, which was a really hot, fiddly
Oh.
fine motor. Put them into leaves, and then we put them on a grill on the fire, and then we unwrap them like little presents, these tiny little flapjacks, and I just think that was amazing. And it was, we thought about the trees, we gathered it from the trees, we kind of said thank you to the trees. We knew that we had to be careful what leaves we had, the shapes of the leaves, and then stitching them together with twigs, and then eating. What a yummy thing. And then, like, we gave some to the robin that always visits, and here, that kind of thing feels really nice.
I think I have to agree with you.
Everybody feels like nourished.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, I think one of the things I've definitely learned from growing my own food is it tastes so much better than it does in the shops. It's so yummy. And then it's just that extra feeling, isn't it? That, oh, I grew this, like, this is great. And I
Yeah.
think one of my favourite memories is pretty similar, building hedgehog dens and making natural bird feeders.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Peanut butter and all the seeds and things like that, and then putting them outside and waiting. The excitement when a child, maybe either we put a camera there or we go back and check and the food's gone, or there's
Yes.
parts missing from the bird feeder, and they go, oh, they've eaten it, and it's just, oh, it's such a magical feeling because they want to keep going and doing it again. And that interaction they have between animals, and like you say, in rural, in urban environments, they might not, see squirrels or, things like that. There's just it's tarmac city. But to have that relationship with animals and to feel like they're caring for them, and they get so excited when they see the impact that they've made, it's just, just warms your heart.
And it makes me think about the connection between the outdoors and the indoors as well. Like, you could easily kind of do a little trail of, well, okay, where did we get the oats from? Where did they come from? And you could do little pictures, maybe link with string back inside, like where it came from, and maybe there could be a visit to the tree where the hazelnuts might come from. I don't know, but it's like making these links. We're not living in a disconnected world. Actually, we're living in I love this word, entangled world. We're entirely entangled together, and we don't really realize it. And I remember when I was training to be a teacher, a lot of the children they didn't know where, like, milk and eggs came from. They thought they came from the supermarket, which is right. Okay, that's where they came from. But the idea that it comes from an animal, and
Yeah.
it sounds simple, but I don't think it is that simple. Like you say, making a bird feeder, and suddenly there's this living little thing that's wild. I mean, a bird is wild,
Yeah.
coming in, daring to come in, and then we'll make lots of little games around that. So everyone's a bird, and we're all got to come in and pretend to be birds, and you kind of so there's a lot of training, obviously, that you could do to extend what we've been talking about. And you don't even need the training, as I hope we've said, in the sense of enjoying and spending time outdoors. But there's so many ways of building that fun and activities and awareness of what's around us. And it's forever, really. That's the other thing. These experiences create memories,
Right.
positive memories. And yeah, we need that too.
Right.
We need to have these memories. We need to have that as we grow up.
Yeah. See, this is the thing, because I was thinking, like, we've talked about kind of the impact of doing it, and obviously there are many, many reasons and ways that it can support us. But what about the other way, do you think? If we don't do things like this, if we don't understand or explore the importance of nature-based learning, and just even, even for ourselves, what kind of things do you think we're losing or have already lost that we haven't even realized?
Well, we're losing those little moments of joy that you've been describing so beautifully. We're losing the simple satisfaction of life, and actually the empowering of that, that we can do this ourselves. We don't need all this stuff. So I think that's like that. I think we're losing, we could be losing our health, paying it forward that we don't even know now. We could, there's a whole bunch of physical, there's tons of research that shows that, for example, the impact on our eyesight, just by not going outside, because, screens right here.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-screens, we're on a screen, I think there's, we can master technology and be the masters of, should I say, yeah, great. But the problem is, it's hard to do that because it's so light and pinging at us all the time and all that kind of stuff. So I think this physicality is really important. What we lose is our fitness, and we need that.
Yeah.
We need that. We want to get older and walk around and breathe well. And I think we lose community as well. We lose kind of actually hanging out, going through all those real emotions, not so good and good, and coming through them, and knowing that that's okay, isn't it? I just think of all those, I suppose, that village life that we've taken for granted. There's a lot to be lost there, the kind of, as I say, sitting around and being part of, also like silence. I often think, for me, sometimes I need to feel I can be quiet in company.
Yes.
And we can't do that online.
No, you're so right.
And I need to be able to be quiet. And when I can be quiet with a friend or a partner or something, I really value that. And I think sometimes, there's loads of things. And I think when you talk about climate, as I said, I was 19 when I first got involved in sort of climate stuff. And rather than being not hopeful, I think by doing this kind of thing, we have the chance of really enjoying the process of change, rather than seeing it as like, oh no, we're not going to be able to do this. I don't think that's true. I think we need to all feel that it's something that is valuable, and then we're valuable too, right? In that.
Right, I was just going to go on to that. Like, do you feel like, I don't know, for me, it's like we're losing our sense of self, like in terms of social media and technology, and like, again, it can be an incredible tool. I think it's, it's my job. I can't knock it. It's my job. It's great. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But used in the wrong way, if you get caught up in, I always have to be careful, posting a classroom, like an area I've set up, and making sure it's, Instagram perfect, but then, oh no, likes, you get caught up in the likes, or, things like that. And we can't ignore that our children, I know even our young children, are on iPads, they're playing games, they're on YouTube, and they are already exposed to that kind of harm, in a way, kind of quite, can be used wrong, quite dangerous for our mental health. And I just feel like perhaps we're losing our sense of self in doing that. What do you think?
I do agree. I mean, I think the word sense of self, like liking ourselves with knowing that we're not perfect,
right,
at all, genuinely, just like when you water that plant and you think, to have that for yourself, that doesn't rely on someone liking you or you succeeding, as I said, those external cues, those external things, I think is really at the heart of it. And I think that so that self, we give ourself away when we really, I think when we all listen, we probably figure out quite soon that what makes us happy are usually those quite simple things. So I do think we can give ourselves away, that self away, to things that are quite superficial. And I understand the impulse to do that, because if we're around everybody that's doing that, and the media's doing that and the world's doing that, then it's hard to remember that actually just being who we are is enough, you know. And then when, you know, when someone shares, I don't know, they've been really scared about that, or they were upset, that really hurt me, you feel, you go nearer to them, you don't go further away.
Yeah.
You know, or when someone feels a little bit, you know, unhappy with the way they look, you don't relate to that, you know, like, well, I do, I'm not saying you, but, you know, we relate to
no, I do.
Yeah, you do, you know, we do. And so I feel putting ourselves out there, that is someone that doesn't have that, it actually doesn't bring us connection.
It's the illusion of connection, isn't it?
It's the illusion. So I think, yes, we do need to be careful, and all of us need people at any age to be able to mirror back to us that actually we are, doesn't matter all that stuff, it's there, but at the heart of it, we're lovable and loved, hopefully. Yeah. And people don't talk enough about love. You know, it's like, oh, you know, love, I don't know, but I think we're in a generation now where we probably need to come back to figuring that out a little bit and feeling it. And, you know, it's like when you're with kids and you're hanging out, it's that spark, isn't it? And you feel that little thing, and that is very powerful. And then they can be lawyers and whatever they want to be. You know, I've just gone right out there, but you know, that's not the most important thing,
right?
Yeah.
I love it. Before we get on to, because we had quite a few people get in touch and ask some questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Before we get there, what do you want our listeners to know about this kind of approach that we might not know already?
Well, if people want to know more, if they really think this is something they want to explore more, then I really think, you know, look up Forest Kindergarten Local Nature Play. I do want people to know about that, because it's a new training that's really simple for early years. It's 3 days. It's been handed down through Scotland, and a lot of work that's been done up there. And I want people to know about that, because it's simple. It's this model that is really easy to use and applicable. And I think it, you know, I want people to know more about it, because then they can actually see the steps to regularly taking their groups outdoors. That's mainly what I want. And I want people to know that they don't have to know. That participation is, you can actually do it alongside your group. Of course you need to be responsible for health and safety. It goes without saying. But most of us can do that, actually, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You say you don't really need a lot. I started gardening without a clue what I was doing. I didn't have a clue, but I tried, you know. Yeah. And a year and a bit later, I've got, you know, I know I keep going on about it. I'm such a gardening nerd, but, you know, I've got some good crops. I'm rather proud of myself, you know. Yes. And it's that nice thing. Like, you can start from any stage. It doesn't matter.
Yes, any stage, and do it for as little or as long as you can, and follow those children. You know, it's like, what is it that they're seeking? How can you help them to do that? Yeah, let them lead you a little bit, you know. And I know that's too, you know, we do need to evidence, we do need to show what we're doing when we're in a nursery, but I think there's a lot of resources that can show that it does tick those boxes. We've got to be a bit bolder, you know, like going back to self-esteem. I think if we can esteem ourselves a little bit more, I think we'll find out that we can do this.
Yeah.
You know.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, Jesus, you don't get training to be a parent, right?
Right.
And there you are, fully done. Know nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know anything, really. You know, some of people might have had to care for other children, but you know nothing. And here we are doing it, you know. Always going to we could always do better, but it's enough, hopefully. And that's what children need. You know, that's what they say. They need to know that they're okay, you know. Adorable.
So we have some questions from our listeners, from our followers. A couple of weeks ago on social media, I said, hey, Marina's coming on. Grab her now. Get her expertise while you can. And we had loads of questions, which is really great. So I've picked a few. The first one is from Andrea Hilario. And she asks, how do we incorporate nature-based learning with little or no outdoor space?
Well, we've sort of touched that throughout the whole program, I think. I mean, the first thing is you need to try, ideally for me, locate where are these green spaces. Is it a 10-minute walk? Is it a 15-minute walk? Because the walk is as interesting and as exciting as getting there, right? So I do think this idea of these corridors, figuring out where they are is important. But if you've got nothing, like if you're in a flat, bring it in, baskets of leaves, baskets of stones, baskets of twigs. Put a tarp down on the floor, put a tarp down and allow that messiness. It's that messy play type thing. Clay, sticking things in clay, building things. I think you have to look around, like a lot. I think a lot of urban settings, sometimes you have these like posts sunken into the ground. You don't have trees. Well, they can easily be used to tie knots onto, and tarps and things like that. So I would be saying again that loose parts, but really thinking about natural parts. And then I guess you've got to think about storage as well. Making it easier, having a kind of shed. I mean, forget this idea that just men need sheds. Everybody needs a shed.
Right, I love my shed.
Yeah, I love my shed. I'm in a shed
yeah,
right
me
now.
too. Oh my god, I'm literally, this is my shed in the garden.
Exactly, sheds is the way forward. Everybody needs a shed, and
that's so funny.
So get a shed, and yes, they might cost a little bit, but they're not that much. And again, is there a parent that has a bit of wood or whatever that could put together something? So you have your little shelves with your baskets of stuff and bring it out. I think it's about experimenting, and yes, you might not be in this lovely outdoor nursery, but that's not what children need. They need the relationship with you first of all, and then they a few loose parts, and watch them and watch yourself. What would you do? What do you do on the beach? Just put the stones, make shapes, pile them up, make a long line. Maybe we walk and see how long a line, how many steps will it take to get from one end to the other. Maybe make a little song about 1, 2, 3 stone. I don't know. Smile at me, won't you? I don't know, whatever. Something like that, yeah?
Yeah. That actually kind of ties in really nice with the next one, because we had Lauren who asks, how do we get maybe families on board who are worried about their children missing out on formal learning or getting messy?
Yes. Well, I think I think the messy thing is fair enough if you've got very little resources, and how you're going to clean your clothes and all this. And it's another stress, isn't it, for a family if they've got to deal with that situation. So I think, we've got to listen to people's concerns. It's that listening again, participation of parents. So let's find out what the issues are. Is it that, or is it that they're just have no idea about all the range of values and positive outcomes of this kind of play, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think a lot of schools I've worked in, they might, they have a change of clothes, plastic bag, in it comes, change of clothes, kids change into their messy clothes, chuck it in the plastic bag, go home, right? But if that's not the case, you've got to we've got to come together as a community and sort of raise awareness of secondhand clothes and get hand-me-downs and do your best. But I would say as well is that how many clothes do they need? Probably most children are happy running around
naked
in what they're wearing. In what they're wearing. And if there's not a health safety reason, which there usually isn't, they can get a bit cold and get warm by playing. And but I think you got to and then I always recommend like some kind of parent morning or something where parents can come around and play and hang out and see the kind of things you're doing, and then a bit of reflection on, well, why is this connected to writing? Playing with sticks, again, that's all the skills for holding pencils, right? Mark making, all that kind of stuff that people know about. So I think we need to educate, and we need to be respectful of the concerns, listen to each other, and hopefully, in my experience, is that people get it, but they don't get it straight away.
No. And like you say, if we're asking our children to learn by experiencing and to trust by experiencing, well, then so do our families. Like you say, invite them in, take them on a forest school activity, let them experience it for themselves. And then be like, oh yeah.
And then kind of draw out what some of those benefits were for the curriculum as well as for the wellbeing side. And sometimes we do, like, in the training, we'll have like these little laminated cards of some of the research. And, we just throw the cards out to people and they kind of have a chance to think about it. And it's like, God, I never realised that. And I didn't realise that. And you could do that with parents easily.
Yeah.
Just did you know, or in a parent's letter, send home, did you know? And I think that's where we start, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, listening to this episode of the podcast, of course,
Of course, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Checking out your websites, etc., of course, yeah.
Yes.
We'll plug those at the end, by the way, don't
worry. Okay.
Our last question from our listeners. How do we support children with additional needs to access nature-based learning?
Well, for the last, 15 years, I've been working with the Family Intensive Support Service, Learning Disability Service, outdoors. And what I would say is, it's meeting people at where they are. You have to understand the needs and then figure out what would be possible. And again, if you're someone that's never seen or experienced being outdoors and seeing what's possible, then it's hard to imagine it. So in answer to that question is, people that have very limited seeing can soar, can paint, can touch, can do all the things that I can do, but may need a little bit more support, right? A little bit more awareness on some of the risks involved. But it's absolutely participating. Of children that put things in their mouths a lot. And so we decided to make the paint out of yogurt.
Oh, yeah.
And put in, like, blackberries and stuff like that. So that we weren't worried if that child was ending up putting things in the mouth. We've used drills where, they can hold one drill and we use the other hand to drill. So yeah, of course you're going to need more experience and ratios, have a higher ratio, but you would do that with any children that had more needs as well. I do feel like the imagination, being able to realize that we, often children will only meet what we think they're capable of rather than actually what they really are capable of. The stuff that when we run, days, weeks, whatever we do, like forest school longer programs, I honestly very rarely do anything different from one group to another. I am responding to the groups, absolutely, but we're still bringing in the same kind of stuff, just meeting. It may be slower to do it. It may need a few more staff, but generally people are still, swinging, lying on the ground, still eating, playing with music, in the woods. So I would say it's really possible with all of it.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the beauties of it, isn't it? It's because it's...
Yes.
I mean, the clue's in the name. It's natural. So it's naturally going to accommodate all of us in any capacity, in any way, because that's the that's the nature of nature. It's going to be accessible for all.
That's it. You're absolutely right. And actually, working for years with occupational therapists, that's why they tend to work indoors, right? But now there's a new movement to work outdoors, and what they're saying is, their kind of skill set is grading activities, right? What would an activity, how would that meet supporting a child that needs more help, let's say, learning to use their arms or something, right? And they grade activities, but what they're saying is that's exactly as you've just said. In the outdoors, every activity, every natural resource can meet a child or a person where they're at, because you can access it where you're at, unlike a fixed ladder is, well, then you have to have those skills, whereas if you've got like a hill or whatever it is that they're trying to get up, it meets you. So I think that's it. I think that's why it's, again, a wonderful environment for that.
Before we finish, what we do with all of our guests is we play a little fun game, just to lighten the mood. We've had really cool discussions, and now we're gonna have a bit of fun as well at the end.
Brilliant.
So it's called Would You Rather Teacher Edition. There are some surprising results, I have to say. So we'll see where your answers fit in. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready. Yes.
So, round one. Would you rather tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah.
That was very quick. Didn't even...
Definitely more of a coffee drinker.
Oh, iced coffee, warm coffee. What kind of coffee?
Well, I've actually got into almond milk, which is like, what is that? I couldn't believe I've actually said that but I someone said, milk, try it. And actually that's what I'm drinking at the moment.
Oh, very healthy.
Yeah, it's a bit posh, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. But, I've tried it and I'm like, yeah.
I know. I know, but that's what I'm drinking and it's working.
There you go. Well,
I'm drinking quite a lot of it, so there you go.
Must be good.
Must be good.
Round 2. Would you rather go to forest school in the rain or the snow?
Oh, I'm going to say the snow. Just
because. Oh, are you?
Definitely.
I would have said rain.
Oh, no, I would absolutely say snow. Can you imagine the crunchiness and the possibilities of the snow? Oh, 100%. I go in the rain all the time, so I'd definitely choose the snow.
Oh, okay, that's fair. But I have a big thing. I think I said it on one of the episodes, like, but it gets all mucky and it's like sludge and it's just like, bleh.
Oh, well, you didn't say which kind of snow. If you said sludgy, wet, I might not have agreed. I had in my head, it was really nice snow that you just crunch on.
Yeah, it's 10 seconds of that and then...
Oh, no, I was going for proper snow that I haven't seen in many years. Yeah, no, it's proper snow. And all the kind of, like... Oh, the tracks, everything you can do in the snow. Love it.
That's a good point.
I've even made snow houses in snow with kids.
Oh,
like proper put in ice cream boxes and you make bricks and crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
that
and
great.
Oh, there's so many. Come along, snow when it next snows.
I'll be watching from the caravan with the hot chocolate, like, oh, this is beautiful, because like I can't. I'm just I can't. I'm so cold. I hate it.
Oh,
rain. I love rain. I think it's
I love rain too.
The ambience. It's the sound. It's the smell. It's there's just something about being in a forest when it rains. Just the whole sensory experience.
True.
I absolutely adore. And then also it saves me a job because it's feeding my plants.
That's it.
So I don't have to go around with a watering can.
That's it.
And last in our Would You Rather teacher edition, would you rather run out of wellies or overalls?
I'm going to say overalls.
Oh, why?
I know. Yeah, I just think wet feet.
Yes, there's nothing like it.
No, I mean, I was a bit wet this weekend because I did go camping and, my feet were wet and it was fine for about an hour. But afterwards I was like,
yeah,
it would have been better off without the shoes.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I'm going for wellies on a wet day. Clearly, I wouldn't choose. I don't want to wear any of those things.
Yeah,
if I need to. But yeah, I would keep the wellies, get rid of the overalls.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Yeah, there's something about having wet feet, isn't there, that just ruins the mood. And then they get cold and... Ugh.
Yeah, definitely.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us today, Marina. I really enjoyed our chat. It's been so lovely and it's really exciting. And I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to inspire a lot of our listeners as well. And maybe it could be practitioners in schools and nurseries, but also families and carers and other people that work with children too. So where can we find you? Where can we contact you? Where can we go if we want to learn more?
Well, two places really is if you want to get hold of loads of great accessible resources that are online, that because you're not nearby, then the Outdoor Teacher. So www.theoutdoorteacher.com, because we've spent a lot of time creating resources for all people so they can get out there and do it safely and well and have fun. And then the other, if you're more local, we're in Sussex. I mean, people do travel. It's Circle of Life Rediscovery, which is as I said, a community interest company, and really for this age it's the forest kindergarten local nature play, and with them we get to meet in person.
Oh, that would be so great. And what projects are coming up? What are on at the moment? Can people get involved now?
Well, I think the next real forest kindergarten work is happening in October, so that gives people a bit of time.
That's good. Yeah.
In fact, we're starting to slow down now for the summer. So I think autumn's really the next time. I mean, but unless you want to do all the online stuff, and then it's all time.
Yeah, well, this is it.
Forever and ever.
And I think as well, like I've joined a couple of your Facebook lives and they're so good. And you've got like archives and things and videos and things that you can do anyway. But you're so right. I think autumn is the best place, because I think, especially for me, when I was in schools and nurseries, the biggest thing for me was, what do I do with the outside area in the autumn and then when winter comes? So your project that's starting in October is actually going to be really beneficial, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's been in that position, and you're going to give some great ideas and advice and expertise on really good timing, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about all year, everything all year, and it never stops. And I know it's like, oh, cold in the winter, but I can honestly say it's beautiful and is satisfying and is engaging all year round.
It is. Thank you so much, Marina. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing what more you do in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I appreciate this chat.
Well, there we go. Wasn't it such a lovely talk with Marina? She's so much fun to talk to, and she really knows her stuff. And if it didn't already, I hope you are super inspired to get out there in nature with your children, with your class, with your settings, and go and explore. And if you can't do that, try and bring it in, like Marina said. Go and follow her on social media. Honestly, she's so much fun. She's really great. And don't forget to like, favourite, subscribe, follow. You know what to do. You know the drill by now. And tell your friends about this episode and the podcast as a whole. And I can't wait to see you for another episode. Have a great day. So that's it from today's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would like to get involved or would like to know more, come and find us on our social media sites. We have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok account. All of the details will be in the description. And whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great day today.